Welcome back to the Mountain East Digital Network. Thanks for joining us here. I'm Adam Zundel from the Mountain East, joined now by the Director of Athletics at Fairmont State, Mr. Greg Bamberger. Greg, thanks for joining us here today.
Oh, you're welcome, Adam. I'm glad that you put all this stuff together.
I appreciate that. First, let's introduce yourself. Introduce yourself to kind of the group and kind of tell us about your path to Fairmont State.
Well, I've been in college athletics for a number of years. Once I got done my playing career many years ago, I did begin a coaching career in football, coached at 5 different institutions. My final stop as a coach was at one of our sister schools, Glenville State College, back in 2000. I joined Glenville as a assistant football coach. And after 2 years, I was given the opportunity to take over the department as the athletic director. I followed Tim Carney, longtime golf coach and athletic administrator at Glenville. Spent 3 years there, and then had the opportunity to move on to Kutztown State University up in the Pennsylvania state system, part of the PSAC, and was there for 15 years. I was going to back up just a touch. While at Glenville, there was a couple of jobs in the West Virginia Conference, now the Mountain East, that I always kind of had my eye on. One of those was always Fairmont. The other one was Shepherd. Shepherd's no longer part of us. But Fairmont, for those that don't know, I actually tried the opportunity to get this job a number of years ago and was unsuccessful. But it was always one of those that I always had an eye on. So after 15 years at Kutztown, I was given that opportunity. Dr. Martin approached me and asked me to consider taking over this department. And I said, you know what? I think it's time. It's always one I had an eye on, and it's always one that I think that we've got some things in place here. We can have a lot of success on the courts, on the fields, off the courts. Glad to be part of it.
Let's back up just a little bit there. When you moved away from coaching into administration, was it something that had occurred to you as maybe a path for you down the road? Or did the opportunity come up and then it was like, well, yeah, I think this is interesting to me?
It was always my career path. When I got done playing at Duke University back in 1982, my initial goal was to get into athletic administration. I thought it was going to be the best fit for my academic background, my interest in staying involved in sports. Never thought about coaching as a career. As I began my graduate degree in sports administration, I started coaching at Westchester University, which wasn't far from my home. I grew up outside of Philadelphia. And I'm like, I fell in love with coaching. This is great. A couple of years of Westchester and another small school, I then had an opportunity to become a full-time coach at Division I AA institution at BMI, and just coached and loved it. Loved the atmosphere, loved being involved, loved being on the field. But in all those years, 17 years of coaching, I always would take the time to take on additional administrative responsibilities, not just within the football program, but even within the department, if the opportunity presented itself. And as in doing so, I think helped me develop, what I needed to develop, the knowledge and the experience to eventually get into athletic administration. And then again, after a couple of years at Glenville, the opportunity came up and I said, it's time. So I took advantage of it.
Let's talk about Kutztown and a long, obviously, period of time there. When you reflect on that, what are some of the more memorable accomplishments from an administrative point of view where you took the program from this to something that you're really proud of?
Well, there was a number of things. The first year I joined Kutztown, we actually won our first and only what they call the Dixon Cup, the All-Sport Trophy. Had nothing to do with me coming in the first year. Believe me, it had to do with everything that everybody had been doing prior to that. However, we were able to make some adjustments, adjust some priorities more than anything, and finally become the winner they should have been in primarily in the sport of football. And when I got there, at that point, there had been 95 years of college athletics, college football at Kutztown. They had won 7 or more games 5 times in 95 years. Since 2005, when I arrived, and then when I left, we had won a handful of PSAC East championships, a PSAC championship, first time ever in the playoffs. I think Kutztown now in that sport is now one of the ones that you talk about when you look at the PSAC, at least in the Eastern Division. It's now Westchester, Kutztown, where it used to be, Bloomsburg and some others, not faulting, but right now I think Kutztown's in that talk all the time. And I'm very proud of that. That obviously is my sport that I played, the sport that I coached. And it really was nothing more than just adjusting some priorities. And there was a change in leadership that helped. We found the right person to get us to that point. That I'm very proud of. Also, just over the years, we continued to improve on the academic side. The number of PSAC scholar athletes, the number of Dean's List students, always continued to increase. And that was just really our coaches continuing to emphasize to our student athletes, this is why you're here. And we continue to always succeed academically. Very, very proud of that also.
All right, last one.
Those are probably the biggest things.
Yeah, I'll let you go after this. Let's talk about the role of athletics. I know that your family, you've got daughters that are even still active in athletics today. But during this pandemic, the role of athletics and being involved in a sport. You were a player at the Division I level. This is Division II, but and some things have changed. But how important are athletics now? If you're just trying to put it all in perspective.
Well, that's a great question, Adam. In the grand scheme of things, and this may not come off very well, it's not the most important thing we do. It really isn't. It's really about these young people developing the skills and developing the values to move on with life. Now, I think that they do learn a lot of that in the athletic field. Whatever, the teamwork, the persistence, just the ability to develop leadership skills. I think that's what it brings. It brings that development of the overall person. I think that's the value that it plays. In these COVID times, this obviously I didn't learn this in AD 101. None of us did, or even conference office 101. I mean, we don't know how to deal with this thing. We're doing our best with it. But I think as long as we keep things in perspective, I think we're in great shape. I think we've been able to do that here, and I think the MEC overall has been able to keep it in perspective to keep these kids involved and active. Very happy with the fact that we have moved forward as a conference to do this, even though we've hit some hurdles, and we've had some of those hurdles here as people are probably aware. But overall, as long as we keep things in perspective and really understand where it lies, it has been a great vehicle to allow these kids to deal with this whole thing.
All right, Greg, thanks again for the time. We really appreciate it. We also appreciate all the work that you're doing on the campus to try and keep as many student athletes involved and going forward in their education as well. So we do appreciate it.
Thank you, Adam. I appreciate it. And I think this is great what you're doing to besides the Mountain East and what we're trying to do here.
Thank you.